This is Maritime Viewpoints on Marino World Online. Joining us is a powerful and esteemed leader in maritime, the president of Women in Maritime Asia or WIMA Asia, and president of Women in Maritime Philippines or WIMAPHIL, Miss Merle Jimenez San Pedro.
The maritime world is changing, and for the better. With help from IMO, exciting and rewarding career opportunities are opening up for women, and a new generation of strong and talented women are responding. They're proving that, in today's world, the maritime industries are for everyone. It's not about your gender, it's about what you can do.
Welcome to the program, Miss Merle.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Lynn, and good evening to another empowered woman, of course, in your field there. Thank you so much for the invitation to Women in Maritime Philippines. Of course, we're preparing for our Women's Month come March 8th. So thank you, Lynn.
And happy Women's Month because March is Women's Month, right?
Yes, yes. Happy Happy Women's Day, Women's Month to all our women colleagues in the maritime industry, as well as to our counterpart or our male counterpart in the maritime industry. We know there's a lot of them, but of course we share that we also have that share in keeping this maritime industry alive, even under the most difficult times during this pandemic situation.
And this year's theme of the United Nations is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. What are your thoughts on this, Ms. Merle?
Yes, you said it right, Lynn. The Women in Maritime Philippines, the Board of Trustees has actually agreed to adopt the theme of the United Nations. Of course, WIMAPHIL, which was established by the IMO, we support that theme of women in leadership, achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. And a very appropriate theme indeed for all of us, considering that in this pandemic situation, in all crises that happen, happen in the world, it's always women who carry the brunt of the impact of all this crisis. In this pandemic situation, again, women are the most vulnerable. Indeed, it's a vulnerable sector that is impacted on this challenges that we have facing the pandemic situation. So the challenge is there, and a characteristic of women, we always have ways to deal with all this crisis, with all these challenges. And on the part of the Women in Maritime Philippines, having been established in 2007 by the IMO, and now after 10 years, we actually have been leading the Governing Council in Women in Maritime Asia. And together with these countries, we have been collaborating with our sisters in these Asian countries to work on specifically on the SDG number 5. SDG number 5 of the United Nations is actually the equality of women and the empowerment of women and girls. So all our banner programs are directed towards this SDG number 5, and this is specifically addressed by our banner program for WIMAPHIL, and that is the She2C or the STS. We call it the She2C. We also have another banner program on the Women on Watch, which focuses on the safety and security of ships, and also on the protection of the marine environment, which is also a very, very important goal of the SDG, that of the SDG 13 and the 14 on the climate action. So all our programs are focused on this. With this pandemic situation, even on limited basis, we do our share as well to contribute to meeting these goals and contributing to the fulfillment of these goals.
So we have this She2C campaign, which I think is the most challenging campaign we have launched in WIMAPHIL. Is this more challenging nowadays because of this pandemic?
It's definitely very, very challenging because even before the pandemic situation, opportunities open to women are very limited. And now that there is the pandemic situation, we all know the impact there is that there are few, or there are even lesser or even scarcer opportunities open to women. Why? Because we all know with the crew change, that's one of the issues being faced generally among the seafarers. And this means even beyond the contract period, they are there, they cannot leave the ships. And so the turnover is very limited. In fact, POEA statistics already show that there's a decline of deployment of seafarers. Is that correct, Lynn? There's about 60%, I understand. Yes. So
compared to 2019.
Yes, compared to 2019. So that definitely will impact on women, because if there are less opportunities before the pandemic, after the pandemic, definitely that will be affected. This will be shown in the limited opportunities also open to them. In fact, in some of the counseling sessions that we do among our alumna, for example, WIMAPHIL basically is also in many schools, in maritime colleges. For example, in our case, in Mariners Polytechnic Colleges Foundation in Bicol, specifically in Legazpi, there are instances when some of our young officers and those who have already started getting into the OIC position, they've gone on board, but after a while, when they disembark during this period, they can no longer go on board, because it's now their families, their parents, who have decided not to allow them to go on board. Why? Because of a lot of anxieties that they have because of the situation. And included in that is also the very strict protocols. So indeed, this is just one of those situations where our women seafarers feel that with this pandemic, it has even made their situation worse, because even if they want, if there's an opportunity for them to go back, it's now their parents who would stop them from going to, getting these assignments on board. So there's a lot of barriers now. Lynn, even before we made a study on this. We had a study on why are there so few women on board vessels. And part of this is actually there are personal barriers, there are organizational barriers, there are institutional barriers. Of course, that includes cultural barriers. Because if the company does not also allow women to go on board, then that's a company policy. But now the personal barriers have become very strong, no? Because of this pandemic, it's either this women seafarers, because of their anxieties to go on board, or because their families feel that it's not safe for them to go on board. So these are many of the challenges that are being faced by our seafarers, no, women seafarers. So that for WIMAPHIL, we have actually started to provide um, mental wellness webinars. This is very important, I think, with everybody, not just women seafarers. I think it's important that all of us, those who are engaged in deploying seafarers, I think we have to make sure that our seafarers are properly supported in terms of their need for their mental health. It's not just because it's now a part of the law of the land, but it's also because that's making them more prepared not to go on board, especially for women seafarers. So this is largely now becomes a part of the program of WIMAPHIL now, no? Especially during these pandemic times. We'll have to be very relevant in terms of how we provide mentoring or counseling to our women seafarers, whether they are on board or whether they are here stuck up with the situation. Then it's really the best time for them to get empowered, to find other ways to be tapped in terms of how they can make use of their skills. They can actually go to maritime colleges, can even go to training institutions, they can teach. And that is exactly what we are also trying to work out with Marina. And we're very happy, I'd like to mention that we're very happy because the administrator, Vice Admiral Empedrad, has become very active in promoting also our GAD program, Marina's GAD program, and Women in Maritime Philippines. In fact, Lynn, we're happy to say that our WIMA Asia Secretariat Office is now actually right there in the building of Marina. So even during this lockdown period, the good administrator accommodated us, and we already have a memorandum of agreement with with Marina, indicating that we are now being part of we are being housed now in the building of Marina, right there in port area. So this is also a means of supporting the GAD program, the Women in Maritime Industry. So these are some of the ways that we also become visible, even on limited basis, to make ourselves very relevant during this time.
And we have many chapters now, WIMAPHIL chapters also in PCG and Marina, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. Thank you for mentioning that, Lynn. Actually, we are now growing our sub-chapters. We started off with Marina and PPA, and now we have 3 more and another one coming. So we have Philippine Coast Guard. We also have the PNP Maritime Group. And we have started also our orientation work with DFA. And hopefully we will get also to collaborate with the Philippine Navy. So these are some of the agencies that we're trying to form our sub-chapters, hoping to connect everybody to work for these common programs and for these SDGs that we are committed together with the WIMA Asia.
For WIMA Asia, did this pandemic change your programs and activities? Before, I understand you have these conferences being conducted in different countries in Asia.
Well, definitely, because mobility has also been affected. Well, I would say all the conferences that IMO did before are now limited to virtual hosting of conferences, of webinars. And it's understandable to have all of this because of the many restrictions that we have right now. So in a way, yes, it has affected the mobility and even organizing chapters, going to the different, because we're supposed to have, we just had our conference in Malaysia. And we are supposed to have our next conference in Korea, but this all happened. So I think this is just temporary. So we are looking forward to other opportunities for us really to get together. However, this has not stopped us from linking up with the other sisters from WIMA Asia. So last December 10, we just had our first webinar where the focal person also of IMO, Helen Bunny, was also there to support us. And we also have plans of having another webinar this year of 2021. So even on remote ways, we will have to do our collaboration work, even with other sisters from other regional networks, because IMO has also established other networks. Now in Asia, it's WIMA Asia, but also we have PACWIMA. There's Pacific Women in Maritime. There's also in Saudi Arabia. There's also there are also in Latin America, Caribbean, in the Caribbean also. So it's all there. All the regional networks have been established, and all of us are working towards the goals identified, as I mentioned earlier, on the SDG 5, 13, and 14. And I think this is really another way to connect with each other. It may be by remote ways, but still, I think the women's spirit is very much alive. So there's no really stopping us. It's just that the warm bodies, you cannot really have all the warm bodies out there get together.
Maritime doors is now open. The role of the International Maritime Organization for Empowering Gender in Maritime, presented by Merle Jimenez, San Pedro. About the presenter, Merle Jimenez San Pedro, President, Women in Maritime Asia, President, Women in Maritime Philippines, President, Mariners Polytechnic Colleges Foundation of Legazpi City, Albay Incorporated. The International Maritime Organization, or IMO, is a specialized agency created by the United Nations with a responsibility for the safety and security of shipping and the prevention of marine and atmospheric pollution by ships. IMO's programs and policies support the UN Sustainable Development Goals, including SDG number 5, achievement of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. Over the years, IMO has facilitated the creation of professional networks to improve gender balance in the shipping industry, which resulted to the creation of Women in Maritime, IMO's Gender Program. Women in Maritime Philippines, or WIMAPHIL, one of the networks of IMO's Women in Maritime program, serves as the prime mover in the promotion and realization of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or UN SDGs, in the Philippine maritime industry. As part of our commitment to help the IMO succeed in its efforts towards achieving gender equality and empowerment of women in the maritime industry, WIMAPHIL would like to propose the following programs. Availability of gender disaggregated data for research and information management. Effective programs and policies are data-driven. To truly be able to create and implement programs that would address gender inequality across the maritime industry, the IMO and all organizations under its umbrella need gender disaggregated data in the formulation of scientific and gender-specific policies. Maritime reports and researches generally do not include gender-specific data. For example, in July 2020, the International Transport Workers Federation, or ITF, estimated 300,000 seafarers who were trapped at sea due to crew change crisis caused by government COVID-19 border and travel restrictions. These data, however, did not reflect the number of men and women on board these ships, which is crucial to immediately address the problem. The availability of gender disaggregated data across all levels of the maritime industry will be helpful in the creation of programs that address gender inequality and other gender-specific issues in maritime. Promotion of women in maritime in the education sector. The achievement of gender equality and women empowerment in the maritime industry begins at the education sector. The IMO, through its programs and policies, can strengthen its information campaign on women participation in the maritime industry and cascade it in the education sector. In a lot of countries, including the Philippines, seafaring is still generally perceived as a career exclusive for men. A lot of girls and women are unaware that they too can build a career as seafarers and have the same opportunities that are available for men in maritime. The IMO can lead the global information campaign that would open doors for girls and women who would like to become part of the world's 1.2 million seafarers. Starting the information campaign at the grassroots level and the education sector will help secure women participation in the maritime industry for generations to come. Thank you.
On gender equality, are we still number one in Asia Pacific? How are we ranking now?
Okay. In terms of gender equality, well, I would say that actually the Philippines is the only Asian country among the 20 countries, I would say, that has very good a good rating, no, in terms of the gender gap, no, in terms of the global gender gap. In 2018, we were actually number 8. However, in 2020, according to the World Economic Forum, the global gender gap, the Philippines it actually suffered some setbacks, and now from number 8, we are actually number 16. Basically, when you look at the global gender gap, we speak of there's really not much problem in terms of educational attainment, in terms of educational of opportunities for education. I think that's very clear. You know, we have a very good system of education where opportunities for both men and women are there. You know, there's really not much of a problem. However, when it comes to economic participation and opportunity, and at the same time on the issue of health and survival, I think that's where we are lagging behind. We rank about number 14 in terms of economic participation and opportunities. And when it comes to health and survival, we're even worse. We're even number 42. But I would say that relatively, we're still imagine out of 20, it's the Philippines really there compared to other neighboring ASEAN countries. So I think we're doing pretty well. However, well, to slide to number 16, I think the Philippines has to really review where interventions can be done, especially in the area of economic opportunities. And that also is also reflected on the opportunities that are open for professions like the maritime. We only are about 1%, Lynn. No?
Mhm.
Women are only 1% in terms of the composition, no, of women, more or less. And even with enrollment in schools, the ratio really is far out. No, so it's about 100 to about eight women out of 100, and the rest, of course, it's still majority. It's really a male-dominated profession.
But what are the new approaches and solutions you think we should do to integrate more female seafarers in this industry? And
Okay,
even
what
in the different fields in our sector.
the interventions, because when you look at the opportunities to get into the school, I think there's really not much of a problem. It's really in the industry that that is quite problematic. Like, for example, we are in maritime. We all know that there's very limited opportunities for women, and this is why what we are also would like to see is that we do not also limit these opportunities for them to go on board. Why not take a look at other allied industries? If you take a look at those who go on board, even for cruise ships, basically we are still very much aligned to tasks that are done on board, which are stereotyped to women. So for housekeeping, for food and beverage, although now we see even chefs who are male, but basically it's really the housekeeping. So it's still more of the stereotype. So we're actually looking at more openings and more opportunities for women who can get into naval architecture, who can get into. We actually got some applications to be members for women who are marine surveyors, engineers. So there's a lot of entry points, I guess. It's not just seafaring. This is exactly what we also want to explore. Because as a maritime and archipelagic country, we're not just limited to seafaring, to go on board. There's a lot there. Of course, you can get also into education and training, but you can also get into, although we also have limited women who are naval architects. But I'm very happy to hear that there's a program also for right there in Marina, that they also encourage women to get into naval architecture, into marine surveying, etc. So there's a lot that can be done. So it's not just limiting them to the seafaring profession, but of course that's one of the major targets. But an intervention there, of course, would be to work it out with the different employers so that they could provide more opportunities. They can open up more positions for women and give them equal opportunities, just to let them also explore their potentials, because we also believe that what men can do, women can also do. So it's just really just giving them equal opportunities, and I think that will be enough. Well, I think the giving them equal opportunities would also need some help from companies, that the opportunities should not just come from recruitment. It has also to be spelled out in terms of the opportunities to be retained in their position, to be promoted, okay, to better position, to higher positions, and even to be reintegrated to other positions or to other kinds of work. Because let's face it, this is, of course, one of those very sensitive issues, because they say that, and we accept this, that women relatively have shorter period of seafaring life. Why? Because when they get married, when they bear children, the options become less and less. Because of, it's not just the stereotype, it's not just expectations from the families, but it's as well as, the calling for women also to take care of their children. But we do not stop there. Intervention has also to provide other opportunities other than seafaring, so they can get into teaching. Why not get into schools, even training institutions, or even in maritime administration? We are even asking Marina to open its doors to more women who may no longer they are no longer would say fit, or they would no longer decide to go on board to continue their life as seafarers, but they can go into administration work. So there's a lot of openings that can be given, a lot of opportunities that can be given to women seafarers. And I think that's where our work has to be also, to encourage more employers to try and provide just equal opportunities to these women.
And how do those insights or advocacies of yours on WIMAPHIL relate to your advocacies in Movement for Maritime Philippines? I know you're also the chairperson of Movement for Maritime Philippines.
Oh, yes. Well, all of this can also be related to the goal of our goal actually is really to promote the Philippines as a maritime and archipelagic country. That we all share, I think, that goal. And that, of course, we all know that we used to be number one. Others say we're still number one. However, whether we're number one or number two, it will not stop us from exploring the way for the Philippines to also get into other openings. No? We used to be number 5 in terms of naval architecture, in terms of the shipbuilding. In terms of the shipbuilding. But now I don't know if we are still number 5. So there are opportunities for naval architecture. So why not also get women who are very good at this. And of course, we also see that's shipbuilding and ship repair. And there are also other opportunities to get into ship management, into ship business. So and other allied industries that we can work on. So all of this, if you see this put together, it's putting the Philippines in a very good situation where we can provide more opportunities for women. And maybe, they would say, why is it all women that we are promoting the cause of the women? Well, basically because we do not want women to be left out. In a country that's 50% women, I think we all have to be given also more opportunities to be more productive. And I think it's something that we can do if we can just explore other areas, which I think Marina is trying to do now with its 10-point agenda as well. So hopefully we can work it out with Marina to continue to help us promote women, and women to get into more productive professions if the opportunities are given, and also if the support of the administration is also there. It's important also to make sure that women get the protection that they need. This is protection from harassment, protection from possible abuse. Even as we promote women for the seafaring profession, we also want to make sure that they are also equally protected. This is protection from harassment, protection from possible abuse. Even as we promote women for the seafaring profession, we also want to make sure that they are also equally protected.
Okay. Miss Marie, sorry, but I need to ask you this question. After the death of Commodore Dante Jimenez, what happens now with the Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption leadership? Because I have noticed when Commodore Jimenez started serving the government, you took over his position as the president of Mariners Polytechnic Foundation in Legazpi. How about VACC?
Yes, Lynn. Yeah, I would say just like any other sister, any other sibling, um, whose family got into this advocacy against crime and corruption. As you all know, it all started. My brother's advocacy from his Philippine Navy days really started in 1990, when our naval architect and marine engineer brother was murdered. And it's actually related to he was a mistaken it was a mistaken identity, and we became very active in the advocacy against crime and corruption because of this. He was really just focused on being a dutiful son, a naval officer, but until then, he felt that he has to stand up for the family. And so your question, yes, I've always been a backup for him. I was the Secretary General of the Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption, and even during the earlier days of the crusade against violence. My involvement in organizations like this is never really different from my engagement. Even when I was in college, I was very active during my college days. So that is not new to me. However, now that he passed away, and well, it came sudden. It was really a shock to the family. But now that he's gone, the family is more than committed to continue the advocacy of the VACC. However, my role there is just to provide support. I think I would really be contented, Lynn, with my role in the background for VACC, because I also know that there's so much problem of governance in this country. We will still be there to provide the support to the board and to all the victims of the different crimes and the corrupt practices in this country. But definitely, I will be very much involved in maritime. I think it's something that I have really to keep up, given that now instead of one warm body with us, we're now we do not have him anymore. So it's we really have to continue with our love for the maritime industry. And I know even with him around, I'm sure that he would also make sure that we continue our taking care of our maritime colleges and our maritime training institutions, and to make sure that we give our rightful contribution to the industry. But definitely our VACC commitment will always be there. So I'm sure he will be happy as well to hear that from the family.
Thank you so much, Ms. Merle, for sharing your thoughts. But please, your final message for the celebration of the Women's Month or International Women's Day.
Okay, so thank you very much, Lynn, for this opportunity to address and actually to share what WIMAPHIL and WIMA-Asia are doing in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, which IMO has also committed to support. Definitely our banner programs on the She2C promoting women in maritime, also in the protection of the marine environment, and in our WOW program, which is focused on the safety and security of ships. Definitely, we would want to see more women get engaged and get involved in making sure that our maritime industry, our country, the Philippines, is let's not forget that it's a maritime and archipelagic country, and we should never stop promoting the Philippines as a maritime and archipelagic country. And as women, we all know that we have a lot to contribute, and we would like to ask all the women from Maritime to join us in WIMAPHIL and join us make our contribution to making our industry a better industry, a more productive one, because this is where the generations will really benefit from, and we would like to be part of the history making this country a better one through the maritime industry. So thank you very much, Lynn, for this opportunity for us to share what we are doing right now. And even under the most difficult situation during this pandemic, we are one with you. And of course, Lynn, good luck to to this program that you have. More meaningful contribution to the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Merle. We have just joined by the President of Women in Maritime Philippines and Women in Asia, Ms. Merle, Jimenez, and Pedro. This is Maritime Viewpoints on Marino World Online. I am Lynn Bacani.